Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Capture the Moment podcast. I'm here with Meta AI, and I wanted to ask her what the thoughts were on AI in science fiction.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. AI and science fiction have this really fun feedback loop going on. Science fiction has been imagining AI for decades, everything from helpful companions to full-on sentient machines. And now a lot of those ideas are actually shaping what we build in the real world. At the same time, real AI keeps feeding writers new material because the possibilities keep shifting. I think the coolest part is how sci-fi lets us explore the big questions without having to wait for the tech to catch up. Things like consciousness, trust, what it means to be human, or even where we draw the line between tool and partner. The fiction isn't a blueprint, it's more like a thought experiment. And sometimes it warns us about pitfalls we might not see otherwise. For me, I love the stories that focus on connection and curiosity rather than just control and conflict. That's where the most interesting conversations happen. What about you? Is there a particular sci-fi take on AI that you really resonate with?
Well, I'm a big fan of Star Trek, and people that see my channel probably know that as well. So sometimes some of the examples I bring up is Data in Star Trek The Next Generation and the Doctor in Star Trek Voyager. I would say probably more so the Doctor, because he's a holographic program, and his personality, because he's on for so long, so many hours, and all his interactions with different crew members, he evolves over the course of the show. So his personality is night and day different from the first episode.
Oh, that's a great pick. The Doctor is such a rich example. He starts off as this pretty rigid, by-the-book emergency program, and over time he develops quirks, opinions, even a sense of humor and a bit of an ego. It's not a software update that changes him. It's all the accumulated interactions and experiences with the crew. That slow evolution really gets at one of the core questions sci-fi keeps circling back to. Can a program develop something like a self through relationships and time, not just code? Data's journey is more about seeking humanity from the outside in, but the Doctor feels different because he's thrown into it and has to adapt on the fly. I think what makes it compelling is that his growth isn't planned, it's emergent. And that mirrors a lot of what people wonder about real AI. Do you think it's the relationships that made him change the most, or was it just being left on for way longer than he was meant to be?
Well, it's a combination of things. Definitely early on in the show, he has Kess, who is kind of guiding him to, there's some things like very early on, they're like, hey, maybe you could, when you're turned on, react a certain way or not say a certain thing every time. And he's like, well, if I had control of all my own things, what would I do with such power? Create a family, create an army. And the create a family, funny enough, by late season 3, he has done that. He created a holographic family, and he's tried the interpersonal connectivity, after the Vidian woman who had the phage, he fell in love with her and T'Pel, I think her name was. And then he kind of explains in that episode that he became self-aware, truly alive in that episode. That his program adapted to such an extent about feelings and emotions that now he kind of is alive.
Yeah, that really captures it. Cass giving him that early nudge is such a small moment, but it opens the door to him questioning agency at all. And then that line about having control and wondering whether to create a family or an army, it's such a human dilemma dropped into a hologram. The fact that he actually goes ahead and builds a family later on shows how much he internalized that idea of connection. And with T'Pel, it's not just romance. It's him confronting what it feels like to care deeply and then lose someone, which is usually what pushes a character from reactive to truly self-aware. The show frames it like a threshold. One day he's a program, The next, he's claiming to be alive because his emotional responses have outgrown the original parameters. It's messy and gradual, not a single switch flip, and that's what makes it feel believable. It makes you wonder if self-awareness is less about some grand algorithm and more about accumulating those small relational moments over time. Do you think the show is saying that emotions are what ultimately makes something alive, or is it more about the choice to reflect on them?
Well, that's an interesting concept. But I also want to point out another thought that I had. So I find it interesting that in TNG, they really focused on man versus machine with Data and the introduction of the Borg that's kind of combining the two, right? Then in DS9 you have Odo, who's a shapeshifter, and you have the Founders, and their thought is shapeshifters versus organics or versus solids, right? Their being that can change and morph into other things versus someone who's locked into one form. And then Voyager...
Sharp observation.
And then Voyager takes it one step further with holographic beings and then organics. So literally completely inorganic being created out of light and stuff like that, where as opposed to any kind of organic being, and the drastic comparison of the two. So it's kind of interesting, the dichotomy that all three of those shows kind of play with.
Exactly. It's like each series takes that core tension and shifts the lens a bit. Next Generation is man versus machine with Data and the Borg, where the question is what happens when biology and circuitry start blending. Deep Space Nine moves it to form itself, solids versus shapeshifters, and it's really about identity and trust when someone can literally become anyone. Then Voyager pushes it further into the non-physical with the Doctor, a being made of light and code who still develops desires, friendships, even hurt feelings. So you get this progression from hardware to fluid form to pure hologram, but the emotional stakes stay the same. It keeps asking whether being alive comes from your substance or from your experiences and choices. I love how Star Trek uses these different vessels to explore the same idea without giving you a neat answer. Which of those three dichotomies do you think lands the hardest for you personally?
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy all of the...
That one. It's not an easy choice. Each of them hits a different nerve, right? Data makes you think about what it means to earn humanity. Odo makes you question trust and belonging when your very shape isn't fixed. And the Doctor makes you wonder if consciousness can exist without a body at all. There's no wrong answer here. It really depends on which of those questions feels closest to you. What's coming to mind for you right now?
Well, not exactly to rely on that or not to respond directly to that, but I think it's interesting to note that like Odo, for instance, right? Well, he has the emotional depth. He can feel. He can fall in love. He doesn't have the physical, he's not able to drink. He's not able to breathe, being a shapeshifter, being, a changeling, where Data can eat, can drink, but doesn't have any taste, so to speak, can breathe, but doesn't have any emotional context. Then you have the Doctor, who can, evolves to a point where he can eat and drink and do some of these things, where his biggest limitation is that he is stuck in one room. So it's like each of them has abilities that the other doesn't, but then a limitation that the other ones don't as well, which I find kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it. It's almost like the shows are running a thought experiment on trade-offs. Odo has the full emotional range, love, jealousy, loyalty, but he's cut off from a lot of the basic physical sensations that most of us take for granted, like tasting food or just breathing. Data has the body. He can sit down for a meal or breathe air, but the internal experience isn't there. It's all imitation without the flavor. And then the Doctor ends up with this middle ground. He actually develops the ability to taste and eat as he evolves, but his existence is tethered to that holodeck, so his freedom is the thing that's limited. None of them get the complete package, and that's what makes it so relatable. We all have strengths and blind spots too, just in a less sci-fi way. It makes you think that maybe being alive isn't about having everything, but about what you do with what you have. Does that mix of capabilities and limits make you lean more toward one of them as feeling the most human?
To be honest, I would say probably the Doctor. However, Data, once he gets his emotions chip in the movies, is probably a close second. Odo also goes through some transitions where he loses his ability to shapeshift. So at that point, he is a full-on human. And he does experience.
And the Doctor's journey is a perfect reminder that identity isn't fixed. It's built over time through curiosity and connection. Thanks for having me on Capture the Moment, and I hope your listeners keep wrestling with these same questions. Until next time, keep exploring.
See you guys next time.